Hello, my name is Amy Patterson, and I am here with Molly Sir with Kentucky Stats, and we're here to tell you about the Kentucky Special Education Data Dashboard. We're really excited about this tool, and we just want to share it with you. Last year, we started talking about a dashboard. It's actually been in the works for years, but we really started focusing on developing this dashboard. And we partnered with Kentucky Stats and started thinking about the data that we have and how we want to share this data in a really usable format for the public to use. Some of the questions that we want to answer with this dashboard is how many students in Kentucky have disabilities, which disabilities are most common, how do the data compare across demographic groups? How do geographical areas compare to each other, and how have the data changed over time? So we started building this dashboard, and we started with the child count data. It's going to be an ongoing project, so we will continue adding pieces to it. We are also working toward making it more accessible. We've added the data in, a link to the data, so that people who have trouble using the graphical format can download the data. And we're going to continue adding pieces to this. So I'm going to turn this over to Molly Sir, who's done the majority of the work on this, actually all the work on this dashboard, and let her tell us about it.
Thank you, Amy. So I pulled up the dashboard here, which we will share the link to you when we send out this training video. But as Amy mentioned, I want to point out that the data is available right here at the top in an accessible format. And so if you click here, you will download a spreadsheet that has all of the same data and explains how to get the same level of analysis in a version using Excel. So this dashboard has two main pages. The first one is the special education overview, and the second one is the comparison tool. And you can navigate between the two of them by clicking each of them. For the tech notes and a walkthrough, you can also click here to download a PDF of the technical notes for more information about how all of this came together. So first, I'll explain how to use the special education overview. This is using, as Amy mentioned, this is the child count data from 3 years of data. And the user can first select which year they're interested in looking at the data for. And then you can select if you would like to look at a specific district or to keep all districts and keep the format as it is right now. So first, you can hover over here and receive the data for statewide level students with disabilities for the year that you selected. So you can see here we selected academic year 2020 to 2021. And this is it shows the number of students with a disability statewide is just over or nearly 106,000, and that's about 16% of students in the state. And we also have the data available by special education co-op. And so when you hover over each of the co-ops, you can find the data, the same information for the number of students with disabilities and the percent of students with disabilities for each of these special education cooperatives. You'll also notice that the map is color-coded. There's a legend here that indicates the concentration of students with disabilities. And so districts that have a darker color, that indicates that a higher percentage of students have disabilities. Because there are a number of smaller districts in Northern Kentucky, we've also highlighted, we've zoomed in on this part of Kentucky and provided this information here as well. So if we wanted to select one district to look at, we could, for example, look at Woodford County School District by selecting this drop down, and the page will load this district's information. You might have to be a little patient because there's a lot of data in this dashboard, so sometimes it can be a little slow. And we also suggest using Chrome and Firefox browsers if you're having any issues with accessing the dashboard. So as you can see, we selected Woodford County School District. We can hover over that county and get the same information and know that 14% of students in the district have a disability, and the number of students with a disability was 542. So this is the top part of the special education overview. If you come down, this is another good example of how the dashboard can be a little slow, needs some time to think. And we come down and we see the quick facts for students ages 3 to 21 with disabilities in Kentucky. So once again, you can choose how you want to search. Right now we have it selected for the state. So you select the state of Kentucky and which school year you're interested in looking for the data for the children with disabilities data. And first we have the breakdown by race here on the left, where we see that about 77.26% of students with disabilities in the state were white, and 10.66% were Black, 6.33% were Hispanic, 4.6% selected multiple races, and 0.94% were Asian, and 0.14% were Native American, and 0.07% were Pacific Islander. We also have this information by gender. About 66.72% of the students with disabilities identified as male, and 33.28% identified as female. And below these demographic charts, we have a tree map that highlights the most common primary disabilities for students in Kentucky. So the larger the block, the higher the number of students with disabilities that belong to this category. And the color also correlates with the number of students that selected this primary disability category. So as you can see, speech or language impairment is the most common primary disability category statewide, followed by specific learning disability and other health impairment. There are also developmental delay, mild mental disabilities, and a number of other disability categories that we have data for. So this is the information for statewide. You could similarly choose a specific co-op to learn about the breakdown by race, by gender, as well as the most common primary disabilities. And this is where, as we look by co-op, and especially as we start to do our analysis by district, you'll see that a larger number of the data has been redacted. This is because this dashboard will be publicly facing, and we want to make sure we take every student's privacy very seriously. And there's been a very intentional redaction formula used to create this dashboard. I am happy to answer anyone's questions about how we did this, especially if the redaction seems to get in the way of any analysis that you would like to do. We would like to talk with you and make sure you're able to answer the questions that you have about students in your district. So the other tool we have is the comparison tool. As you can see, there are two very similar sides of this tool. On the left, the tool is created so that you can make a selection on the left as well as on the right, and then compare the two selections side by side. So right now we've selected to look at the data by state and to filter by race and look at all races. But we could also filter by gender, grade band, placement, and English proficiency, and look at just specific groups within certain demographic groups within those categories. And over here we have the same selection. So this is also all races. And this is just the Central Kentucky Education Cooperative. And we also have the same year selected for both of these. So the only thing we're looking at is the difference between the state versus the Central Kentucky Educational Cooperative. But you could also look at the state for just male students on one side and just female students on another side, for example. Or you could look at the same district, but for the year prior compared to the current year. So once you've made your selections, you can see that there's a tree map similar to the special education overview, where the larger disability categories are noted with a larger box and a darker color. So here you can see the most common primary disabilities. However, we also want to provide information that might show up that might only be in these little boxes and can be a little hard to find. So there's a full table here of each of the disability categories where you can find the number of students within that category and the percent of the total. So for example, in the state of Kentucky, there were 8,970 students with autism for school year 2020 to 2021, and that made up about 8.5% of all students with disabilities in Kentucky. Once again, redaction we take very seriously to protect student privacy. And because this is a smaller group of students, we redacted the group's deafblindness and traumatic brain injury for this particular cooperative. We want to make sure that students' information is kept private, and if you have any additional questions, I'm happy to answer them further. We're really excited about this tool and to see how this helps the decisions that you need to make and the questions that you have about your district. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. My contact information is right up here. And it's molly.sir@ky.gov, and I would be more than happy to talk with anyone about any questions you have or other things you would like to see in the future that could be helpful with the data that you're collecting. I'm going to hand it back over to Amy, and we'll talk about a little bit about next steps.
Thanks, Molly. I'll share our email addresses at the end of this as well. So we've talked about what we have now, and again, this is a work in progress. So we're going to continue adding data as well as new indicators. We will have the new child count data put in the next few months. And then we're also going to start looking at indicators 1 and 2, which is percent of exiters who graduated and percent of exiters who dropped out. So this is in the next version of our dashboard. And so this is what it'll look like, or sort of a mock-up of what it will look like. It'll look similar to what we already have. You'll be able to mouse over and see percent of students that graduated and the number of students with IEPs that graduated. And then the same will be true for dropout. And then we can also look at this by race and gender. So this is kind of interesting. These numbers will get very tiny at the district level. So most of these will be at the co-op level or state level. But this is what we are envisioning the next set of work to look like. Okay, I guess I don't have. So again, we're really excited about sharing this with you. So Molly shared her email address. It's molly.sir, S-I-R, @ky.gov. And my email address, I think most of you probably know it, and I'll be sending this out from my email address, but it's amy.patterson@education.ky.gov. And so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We welcome any feedback, good or bad, any questions, any concerns, any suggestions for what you might like to see in future iterations of this. So with that, Molly, do you have anything else to add?
We will be sending this out, and like we said before, if you do have any technical issues, we do suggest using Chrome and Firefox, and we are happy to meet with you to talk more about using this tool for your needs. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right.